after they walk me through your resume question, in my interview sessions, I usually ask, what are your future goals? Mainly because that allows me to see your past progression with where you want to get to in the future. Okay, and that way it gives me a better picture of why you're looking to do an MBA. Now, let's look at that question. What are your future goals? How do we answer this? Well, all right, first of all, don't ever be generic. Okay, you need to have a specific goal. I would say, as far as structurally speaking, start off with the short-term goals, get to the midterm goals, and then you finish it off, top it off with your future long-term goals, okay? You want to talk about maybe immediately after the MBA, about 4 or 5 years after your MBA, and then about 12 to 15 years after the MBA, respectively. The reason why I do this is because you can start off with very specific, and then you kind of broaden it. Some people like to start off with their long-term goals first, and the problem with that is, okay, you might get a big picture, and it's not wrong. Don't think it's wrong. It's fine. It's perfectly fine, because that's also a different strategy. You show the big picture, and then you show your strategy on how to achieve that big picture, and be sure you have a strategy. It's not like, all right, I'm gonna get there. I'm just hoping that the MBA will help me get there in the long term, and then on the way, I'm not sure. That's not the point. You have to make sure you show a well thought out, well planned strategy. The issue that I have, as far as starting off your future goals answer with your long term goals, is sometimes if it doesn't seem feasible, you're already putting up a barrier, an obstacle in front of you, and you have to convince the interviewer otherwise. You see, remember what I said in the last question, that one of the things interviewers are looking for is to see if your goals are plausible, if they are achievable, and what's your rate for success, compared with those who have already walked the path before you. Okay, this is not just a guess for them. They kind of know where you want to get to, and then even in their own class, their classmates, or even within their network, they know of students who have walked the same path you have, and they can rate what the probability of success is for you. And in the event that it's not very probable, or it doesn't seem probable, what you're doing is you're automatically putting up a wall. You're automatically setting yourself up to have to convince this guy with your short and midterm goals. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of shooting yourself in your own foot. However, if you start off with your short-term goals and being specific, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to do this. But when you start off with your short-term goals, the long-term goals actually appear to be less of a huge feat. You kind of get rid of the red flag, so to speak, and it's easy for you to convince the person that this is something that you can obtain, you can achieve. Another problem that I have with the long-term goals is, look, it's 15 years from now, 15 years from at least, after your MBA. Sure, I mean, we all have ambitious goals. That's perfectly fine. However, 15 years is a long time. You never know what's going to happen in 15 years. I mean, you can get married, you have kids, you might change careers, you might, let's hope it doesn't happen, you might get sick, and you might decide, you know what, I'm just going to give everything up and just get to know the world. We don't know. I hope that never happens to you guys. As far as getting sick part, I wish you full health for the rest of your life. But my point is, nobody knows what's going to happen 15 years from now. That's really not the point. The interviewer and the schools are not looking they're not looking at the end game. They know that, very few people have actually achieved their very long-term goals exactly how they planned it, or how they spoke it in the interview. And they're not going to call you up 15 years from now and say, remember during your interview you said you wanted to do this. It's not the point. All right? That's not what they're going to do. So that's why I like to start off with the short-term goals first. Here's a few tips on the short-term goals. When you are talking about it, you must be specific. the first thing you need to do before you actually try to start answering this question when you're practicing or before your interview is, all right, what do you really want to do? How do you plan to do it? What is your strategy? Some people say, okay, I want to get into consumer goods, or I want to get into luxury goods. All right, you got to be specific. Oh, well, I can go to this company, that company. I could go to company A, company B, company C. I just want to be in that industry. All right. Yeah, okay, you have a good idea of where you want to be, but no, you need to have a more specific. Like, choose one or two companies that have similar cultures, not only amongst themselves within that industry, but also among the students in your, among the culture of the school of your choice. Here's why. Companies all have cultures, their own cultures. Right? Any group of people follow their own specific culture. And as you should know by now, we tend to like people who are like us or people who we'd like to become. So if you're saying, oh, I want to go to McKinsey, but then you're applying to a very collaborative, homey feeling kind of like, let's say Kellogg or Tuck. And yes, there are students from Kellogg and Tuck that get into McKinsey, but it's just not the same as if you were applying for Harvard and you wanted to get into McKinsey. The cultures are completely different. You see, there needs to be an alignment there that makes sense. So okay, let's say I want to get into Johnson & Johnson. Great. From there, I want to move up into a managerial position. And then this is something cliche that everyone says, but I want to apply everything that I learned during the MBA in my work, and then afterwards I would progress into a higher position in the midterm, and in the long term I want to become CEO or at least a C-level executive at that company. All right, great, but it's still vague. It's still kind of bland. Let me ask you this question. If you're watching this right now, that means you either have an interview set up or you want to prepare way before your interview even gets set up, which is awesome. All right, I commend you on that. Have you spoken with career services centers, like of the schools that you're applying to? That's one of the best things you can do as far as having a solid future goals answer. Because if you get in touch with the career services centers in the schools that you're applying to, then what happens is you get inside information on that market. Okay, what are the probabilities of students getting into X company? What companies are recruiting at your school? Once you know this, once you've done this recon, you can actually talk to career services centers and tell them, look, I'm actually applying. I'm awaiting. I've applied and I'd like to know, what are my chances for getting into this company? What are the steps that I should take? Who should I speak to as far as in the company? How can I talk to somebody who recruits? Because in the event that I am at the school, I would like to build my curriculum around the specific skill set that I need in order to achieve best possible success for that school. And career services centers are fantastic. I know about 4 or 5 people from different schools who work in these centers, and they're just the most lovable people in the sense that they are there solely to help you find and establish a strong career and get you going. Okay. So put your trust in them, and really open up and talk to them. This is what I really want to do. How do you think I should go about this? All right, so let's say you're not going into consulting. What if I'm making a career change? What if I'm coming from a banking industry and I want to become an entrepreneur? Fantastic. That's fine. But have a specific plan laid out. It's not just like, after my MBA, I want to apply on my knowledge. I want to then gradually grow and progress and become a better professional, and hopefully in the long term become, an entrepreneur and be successful. Duh, right? You can't. That's not clear. Okay, show it step by step. Well, I've set up a team of great professionals who we all believe in this one idea to start, for a startup. And I realized that as let's say the main leader, the ringleader of this group, I figured I needed to solidify some skills and tools that I would need in order to make sure that we are on the right track. Make sure that budget is good and team morale is good. So all of these skills that I need to learn, I will learn from the MBA. Upon graduating, I will return to my country, and we're gonna immediately start on spending our full time on this startup or on this business. And I would like to implement the certain strategies from X class, so that I make sure that we are more likely to succeed than to fail. Our midterm goal is then to expand and implement, XYZ. In the long term, hopefully, we do want this program, we do want this system to impact the lives of many people who are in need of, infrastructure or whatever. Okay, it depends on what you want to do. In the event that you are planning to, or you would like to study after your MBA, you would like to work and live abroad in a company abroad for a few years before returning to your home country. All right, here's where it gets kind of hairy. A couple of things you need to know if that is in fact your goal. First off, find the specific companies that you are interested in. Figure out if they do recruit. Second step, find out what their visa status is. How many companies or which companies are willing to sponsor foreign students over nationals who come out of MBAs? That's huge. Because here, even unless you're like number one in the class or something, or extremely extraordinary, or that you've completely, that you completely blew the minds off of your superiors during your internship while you were there during your MBA, it's very unlikely that a company will sponsor your internship, especially if they have a branch in your own country. Okay, that's something you really need to dig deep and look into. What is the probability of that company picking you up, sponsoring your visa for 2 years while you work there and gain experience? And it's honorable because, yes, you want to get experience in an industry that's spearheading the market, right? Like maybe in the United States, in New York, maybe in London, who is spearheading the specific markets in the finance market all around the world. These guys are on the vanguard, That's honorable, and it's great that you want that experience. But I'm here to warn you, not many people get that chance to get that sponsorship, especially with things that are going on in the market today. So get that down. Another thing you need to know is the following: we're talking about internationals versus nationals, or they have home court advantage. One cultural clash that almost all of my students feel when they first arrive, and if you know any of my alumni, they can attest to this. They can confirm this. When you arrive on campus, you're gonna get hit with a different reality from what you are accustomed to. Obviously, because you're in a different country, you're outside of your comfort zone, duh. But that's not the point. The point is this: most national students have already done their career services research. So a few of your classmates may even have interviews lined up for internships or for jobs. A few of them already have their summer jobs ready to go. Because obviously, yeah, they live there, they have closer access, they have immediate access to everything. Yes and no. Their initiative began way long ago. So they already have something lined up. Most of them already have something lined up for their careers. They already know what they want to do. By the time you get to the first day of school, you'll start figuring this out. The second thing is this: when you get to class, a huge shock that you'll feel will be that in most foreign countries, even in university or in college, you tend to watch a lecture, then the professor tells you what to read up on, and you go home and you study for what you study on Study about what you learned that day. However, when you go to an MBA, it's the opposite. Everybody reads up and studies what they need to know for the next class. And they need to be prepared for the next class, because then the professor will be doing his lecture, and calling on your name, or or putting you guys in groups to do a case study. And a lot of people are not used to that. So the first couple of weeks is just a scramble to catch up on everything they didn't do. Okay. While we're on this subject, when you do get to, once you do pass the interview process, you are accepted. And some students ask me, how long before school starts, the program starts, should I be, in that location? I'd say 2 months. That's my, because sometimes some students take longer than others to find a place to live. There's just so much there going on. Most of the national students have at least the next 3 years planned out pretty well. I'm saying this to prove a point. Your short-term goals need to be very specific. What do you want to do? How are you going to get there? And what are you going to do afterwards to achieve your midterm transition into your long-term goals? It's more important for your short-term goals to be very specific. As far as your long-term goals, you don't want it generic or broad, but it's not something that you need to worry too much about. So my suggestion is that start off with the short term, hit the midterm, then go long term, rather than the other way around. Unless you have a very convincing argument after your long term goals, even if it's I want to become the president of the United States. All right, great, that's awesome. So why do you want an MBA? How are you going to take that MBA and get into the political world in the short term, in the midterm, and in the long term? These are questions that you have to ask yourself. It's not about what you want to do, where you want to be. It's how you're going to get there. That's what you need to show in this answer. How do you plan to get there? Cool? Got it? All right. On to the next question.